Hello and welcome to the Grade 9 assignment introduction. We have in front of us the Grade 9 class. I'm Mr. Grieger naturally. Today we are introducing this task, the Shylock speech synthesis task. Hopefully all of you who are slacking off at volleyball today are able to tune in and learn everything that the class goes through. Okay, let's turn to this. We'll run through it as we usually do, starting at the top. Read through, and as always, you're welcome to put your hand up and ask questions at any time. Here we go. First thing you're probably interested in is the due date, due Tuesday, week 3 in class. So it's not by midnight, it's not when you get home, it's when I talk to you in class on Tuesday, week 3. I can check sector and it's submitted and done. Let's read through it. In The Merchant of Venice, Shakespeare explores the treatment of minorities through the character of Shylock. Shylock is a complex character and can be viewed in different ways. In a multifaceted and emotive speech, he discusses his mistreatment by the people of Venice, alludes to the shared humanity of all people, and reveals the extent of his revenge plans. In your next assessment, you are to rewrite Shylock's speech for a modern setting and character. I should have said for those of you at home, if you don't have this already, log on to Sector, find this sheet. That, along with a couple of resources and an example, is online on Sector currently. Okay. So rewriting Shylock's speech, saying similar sorts of things, but for a modern setting. You should first choose which character you want to have expressing the themes and ideas of the speech. So choosing which character you want to be saying similar things to what Shylock says. They can come from any area of society / the world, whether local or exotic. They should, however, not be fictional. So I want you to choose real people here. Some of you chose movie characters for your poster, completely fine. But for this one, I want you to choose real life people or groups. We'll just pause there. And next, we'll pause there. So when I say consider to do it from the point of view of a person or a group, what that might mean is, my example, which we'll look at in a few minutes, I've done it from the point of view of criminals. My poster was done from the point of view of criminals. My example's done the same thing. So I've thought about what Shylock said in his speech, and then I've taken that and thought, if a criminal was saying the similar sorts of things, what would that look like? What would they say? Then wrote that speech from their point of view. That's a group of people. I haven't chosen one particular criminal. You could choose a particular person. You could, for example, choose, Donald Trump could be a good example. You could, for example, choose to do it from the point of view of an Australian politician, Malcolm Turnbull or something. Any particular person or a group of people, refugees, any other minorities. Any questions at this point? Mark. Oh, by the way, if you hear me using names, it's a code name. So this person's name isn't actually Mark. Code name, Mark.
Do we have to write it like it's Shakespeare? Like, do we have to write it in Old English sound?
Write it in whatever language you prefer. What you'll notice is that Shylock's actual speech isn't actually all that old-fashioned. The words, we're actually pretty familiar with the words he uses. So do it whatever style you want. Cool. Okay. Any other questions? Cool. Next, you should consider life from your person's perspective and what reasons they might have for being victimized or mistreated, holding a grudge against others, believing they are misunderstood, believing they deserve better, and seeking revenge. So these are all the things that Shylock talks about in his speech. I want you to be focusing on these same themes, these same pieces of content in your speech from the point of view of somebody else. Next up, part of Shakespeare's gift lies in understanding human experience and being able to express real emotion from others' perspectives. You should try hard, therefore, to get into the other person's shoes for this activity. Your speech is here are the hard requirements. Be 200 words in length minimum. That's not huge. Shylock's speech is around 165 words. I want yours to be 200 words minimum. You'll probably find you do that quite easily. There is no upper limit so long as you're giving me good stuff. Use similar techniques and elements to Shylock's speech. We're going to have a look at Shylock's speech a bit later and break down what he does in his speech. It should use imagery, and we remember that's appealing to all 5 senses, not just sight. That's actually appealing to sound, taste, smell, touch, etc. Use rhetorical questions. Again, we'll look at this in reference to Shylock's speech. You should allude to shared humanity. We've talked about how at people's heart we're all the same. We might appear different on the surface, but the idea is if we go deep enough, we're all essentially the same. I want you to be really drawing upon that idea in this speech. You can do that by looking at the physical similarities of all people, like Shylock does. Hath not a Jew eyes, hands, feet, dimensions, etc. And the similar hopes and fears of all people. You can also look at, actually I'm going to leave it there because this will make sense when we actually look at my example. What we're going to do, any questions before we look at my example? John?
Do we do our speech in the same format as the speech that Shylock did?
What do you mean by that?
Like, lay it out how Shylock did, like different sections how he did?
More or less. Don't restrict yourself to that, but you'll probably find that your speech naturally takes a similar shape anyway. And so yes, go for it. It will make sense if you did, but I won't be taking marks off if it looks a little bit different.
Okay.
Cool. Is there another question over here? No. Cool. Okay, can you jump online to Sector now? You'll see that this task sheet is there, and so is an example that I wrote last night. Have a look at that, and that will hopefully give you an idea of what sort of thing it might look like. Okay. Would you like me to read that out for you, or would you like to read that out individually? I'll read it out, that way we know we're on the same page. Okay, so this is done from the point of view of a criminal. I've looked at this task sheet and I've said, what is the point of view I want to have a go at writing a speech from? Shylock does it from the point of view of a Jewish man in Venice. I do it from the point of view of a criminal in modern society. I want you to choose the point of view, someone who you think is in a similar category. Someone who you think is a little bit misunderstood, potentially victimised. And what you'll notice is that this feels similar to that poster activity you did. If you want to do the same person that you did for that poster activity, completely fine, because you're doing different skills and different content. Okay, I'll read it out. So from the point of view of a criminal, and you'll notice that I start halfway through, kind of like Shylock's speech does as well. I say, and yet you hate me, judge me. It takes all your strength not to scream, to yell at me then and there. Blame me for all the evil in the world and spit at my face. You tell your friends the world will be better without me, that any punishment is too kind, that mere oxygen is wasted on me. And for those of you at home, just in case you're wondering, this is also uploaded on Sector, this example. But what if you traded places with me, not just for a moment or a day, but for a life? What if you saw the tears I cry late at night? Are they less precious than yours? Does the weight of them not crush me as they would you, if there was no one there to wipe them away? What if you were forced to live beside me on the street at 12 years old and beg for food from strangers who already hate you? What if you were left alone on a winter's night with only cold memories to hold, waiting until the sun came up? Do you know how slow time goes lying on cement in the middle of the city when even Hungry Jack's and the cinemas have closed? Are not my tears as heavy as yours? Are my cries and begs inaudible to your ears? Do I not hunger for good food, wish for another blanket, pray for the morning, a friend to pass time with, a hand to hold in the night, and a place to call home? If I knew another way to get it, I would. But the teachers weren't that great at the back of the Centrelink line. No one offered extra tutoring while my mates were committing crimes. And you say get a job, but what the heck would I say? My skills are picking locks, grab the gear and run away. This merry-go-round, endless cycle, piece of junk trap means I'll never leave it, just sink and spin and spin and sink. So please forgive me when I scare you, threaten or steal. It's not the path either of us wanted. But life doesn't offer a menu or ask our advice. It just seems to beat you and tighten its vice. So hate me and curse me, do what you do, but don't dare you judge me till you've walked in my shoes. So, an example there, in the speech from Shylock in Shakespeare, we hear him saying, "You don't get it. You don't understand what it's like to be me. I've been put through this, and these are the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing." I want you to jump into that mindset for the same thing, but for a person of your choice. I did it for a criminal. I really thought, what would it be like to be walking in their shoes? And of course, that's not every criminal's story. Of course, it's more complex than that. But I wanted to just really see what the commonalities were between what we consider people like us, whatever that means, and people who we might see as different to us as well. Any questions at this point? Cool. You'll notice there what do you notice about that speech that I wrote? It did a couple of things. Was your hand about to go up? Codename Anthony?
Yeah. It's very touching,
Touching.
and you can like really understand from a criminal's point of view.
Brilliant. And that's hopefully what I want you to try and do in your speeches as well. Really get inside their shoes. Try and really get a hold of what it would be like to be them. You'll also notice that I jumped into rhyme a couple times there. I kind of did that just because sometimes it's fun, adds a little bit of emphasis and oomph to what you're writing. Feel free to do the same, feel free not to. The language we're going to be using here, because it uses so much imagery, so much rhetorical question, is going to be a little bit poetic without even trying. If you jump into rhyme or something that feels poetic, awesome, go for it. Sounds great. Any other questions at this point? Cool. Okay. Let's jump back to the task sheet now. You'll notice, much to your dread, that it's actually double-sided. Let's turn to the other side. Along with the speech, which we remember is a minimum 200 words, the word count on mine was something like 350-ish, I forget. So your speech isn't all that huge, but I want it to be potent. I want it to be pithy, that is full of punch. So you choose your words carefully in your speech. It doesn't need to be hugely long, but I do want it to be powerful. I want it to be punchy. On the back, turn over now, you need to, and I'll read through this, additionally, you are required to write a 300 to 500 word writer's statement about your speech. So a statement about what you wrote and why you wrote it. This should include why you chose the individual/group you did, the feature or aspect of this group, individual, or your speech which you found most touching or emotional. So what part of your speech did you find most resonated with you? Did you find most emotional, most interesting? Third dot point, what you hope your speech teaches/achieves. So you'll notice that this is drawing on lots of emotion, lots of big ideas. You should be writing this with something in mind, hopefully with a goal to achieve. I want you to write about that in the writer's statement afterwards. Which part of your speech you think is the most effective and why? Where/when you think your speech could be delivered in the real world to have the greatest impact. What you'll notice, those in class and those at home, is that my writer's statement is in the same document on sector. I've got my speech, and then underneath it on the next page I have my writer's statement. So you can look at that as an example for you. And also, I want you to do the same thing. When you submit it on sector, give it to me all in one document. Okay, the writer's statement should take the form of a report and can use first person, that is I and we, if you want. Yes, codename Anthony.
Do you have to upload it on sector, or can we just email it to you offload?
I would prefer sector. If your individual situation is different, let me know, we can work it out. Yeah. It should be written in paragraphs, and each of the above dot points we just looked at should form a paragraph, and you can have headings if you wish. Again, my example on sector has headings. It will be a good way for you to get a good idea of what I'm looking for there. Though it is a report, you do not need to have an introduction or a conclusion. These should be uploaded to sector on the assignment speech synthesis, and both parts of the project, that is the speech and the writer's statement, should be in the one document. Excellent. You've got the marking criteria there. I'm not going to go through that now, but you've got that there to look at when we go through it. Yes, anonymous student.
Why is the writer's statement longer than the actual writing itself?
Good question. So, one thing brilliant writers do is they say a lot in very few words. I've made this speech word count quite small because I want you to start practicing putting lots of power, emotion, and emphasis into as few words as possible. And then when you go in your writer's statement, when you talk about what you did and why you did it, you've got some space to flesh out exactly what you said and why you said it there, because that writing isn't as potent or poetic as the actual speech. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if you're the best writers can say a huge amount in just one poem or one paragraph or something. So I want to get us in that habit of writing with potency. Codename Mark.
Can the whole thing rhyme?
Yes, however, be careful not to restrict yourself to a rhyme scheme. If you start with rhyme, the reader is going to expect that the whole thing rhymes. And if you start with rhyme and then kind of lose it, the reader's going to be, hey, you kind of promised me one thing, and then you don't have it. So, yes, it certainly can, but yeah, sometimes you find people spend ages trying to make stuff rhyme, and then they're just slaves to the rhyme scheme instead of writing really powerful stuff. So I care mostly about the power of what you're saying. If rhyme can add to that, definitely do it. If you're getting restricted by rhyme, yeah, feel free to jump in and out of it. But I would probably recommend not to start with it, because otherwise if you start with a really tight rhyme scheme, people are going to expect that carries through the whole way. Cool. Any further questions? Cool. One final note from me. The example I give of the writer's statement, I've asked you to fulfill 5 dot points worth. In my example, I've only done 2. The reason for that is the speech I wrote will be very different to the speeches you wrote, but the writer's statement will probably look pretty similar for lots of people, so I wanted to do less there, just so I stole less of your ideas. So the writer's statement, I've only got 2 paragraphs done in full, and I've just got headings for the next 3 paragraphs. You do all 5. I just did the first 2 so I didn't steal your ideas. Any final questions? Awesome. As always, let me know if you have any questions as we go through it. You've all got my email. Cool. Good luck. Can everyone please wave goodbye to the camera, which can't see you? Nice. Farewell in cyberspace. Hope volleyball was awesome. We'll catch you next time.